What's going on, guys? Blazing here. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a wonderful day, and thank you for joining me on another Raid Shadow Legends video. Alright guys, so Cole Red's video popped onto my feed. Now I know another fellow content creator of mine, JR3, made a reaction video to this, but I think he needs some support in this, and I think multiple of us need to kind of step up and say, when someone's doing wrong, we gotta, I don't want to say call it out, but we should correct it, right? Let me tell you this. If 50 content creators are telling you stats are not worth it, you want to go stats over sets always, and one content creator is telling you, no, you want to go sets over stats, what does that tell you, right? So let's get into the video, and I'll stop here and there where I think, I need to kind of mention some stuff. So
hello and welcome to Colred Plays Raid Shadow Legends. I am Colred. Thank you for joining me. In today's video, I am going to talk about sets versus stats. Now, if you've watched content creators in this space before, you've probably heard the phrase stats over sets. And I'm going to tell you right now, that's a bad phrase. We need to throw that away. It's an oversimplification of a relatively complex series of considerations that you need.
There's nothing complex about it. The stats are always going to be needed first, right? What good is accuracy if I can't land a debuff? What good is HP if I can't survive a hit, right? Perception sets, great. We have them. If we can't actually have accuracy on the set, it's not really going to be worth it, right? So it's not. It's just not. He's wrong on that part.
Need to make in order to gear your champions properly, not just gear them properly, but potentially it can affect how you collect gear in the first place. Now, there is an underlying truth.
If you're collecting gear properly, looking at the substat rolls, making sure that you're not keeping main stat pieces that are flat stat unless there's certain case uses, it's never going to hurt your account.
To stats over sets, we're going to discuss that. We're going to discuss the distortion that I think it brings to the community in terms of their understanding of gear and sets. And I'm going to provide you with a better system, a better understanding of how not only to gear your champions, but how to decide what gear to keep and what gear to throw away. I hope you're ready for it. Let's get started. Just a quick reminder before we get going, my editor son and I take our newbie accounts out for a spin.
Just going to skip over
viewers,
that.
we get in a little trouble.
Parts
we
where
have a
he
lot of fun. You should come join
puts
us.
himself out there. By the way, before we go too far into this, Colred, if you watch this or any one of his viewers watches this, I'm more than glad to have you on the channel, man, so we can actually talk about this. By the way, I think he looks a little bit like Stu Gaming. Just saying.
All right, so stats versus sets. Why is that a problematic phrase? Well, I think that it teaches the wrong
It's not.
lesson. And there is a reason why that lesson gets taught, but I think it gets oversimplified in that phrase, and that creates problems. So I have a champion here, Skull Crown. Now, when you are building certain champions for specific fights or specific...
Building certain champions for specific fights and specific case uses. Remember this. We're talking not about general or PvE, right? We're talking building them for specific case uses. Now, when we're just talking about specific case uses, he's right. The sets do come into play. Stats are still more important, right? But sets do come into play.
Specific tasks. You may be copying a build from a content creator, or maybe someone from the HH optimizer. You found a build there that you really like that you think is going to work for you. And so you start copying the stats in that build, and you think to yourself, hey, if I could just hit those stats, I can accomplish the goal the same way that that player did or that champion build did for the content creator. And that's actually...
That very well be true. And it is, unless it requires a particular set, right? Remember, specific case uses. If it requires that, then you do need to have the set with the proper stats.
True. That's probably true. If you can replicate those stats, you can probably replicate those results. And so it doesn't matter what sets you use to accomplish the goal of acquiring those stats on that champion. The ultimate goal is just to get the stats that you need. And that's why that phrase exists. Stats over sets. Makes sense. But there are a lot of problems with that phrase and with that mentality. And it's not necessarily going to hurt you in that specific case, but it will hurt your account. And it will also potentially hurt your ability to judge for yourself how to build champions, how to decide when to keep specific pieces in offsets or when to throw out gear and get them, get the silver value out of them. So right now we're going to talk about why.
No, it doesn't. When you get a piece of gear, you look at it. If for your account, it looks like something you would want to roll up, then you roll it up. Then you decide, depending on the rolls, if you keep it or not. Now, depending on how much farming you do, you could be strict or, you could keep it. It also depends on how early game you are and how late game you are, right? As you move further into the end game, you cannot and should not keep trash gear, right? I want you to pay attention to his gear right now. He's got almost 1,300 pieces. So we're talking about somebody who's holding on to a lot of pieces. He's never, ever, ever going to need that many pieces of gear to have on his account so he can gear those champions. He's not going to build out enough of those champions because not enough of them are needed, right? So keep that in mind.
Why is that phrase a problem? Why is that mentality a problem? Well, first of all, as a free-to-play player, I don't have access to endless resources. I don't have access to endless energy. I don't have access to endless gear. I don't have access to endless glyphs.
Neither does Final Compachi. He's a endgame player, right? And he competes at the same levels that, most of the endgame accounts do. He's just been playing for a very long time. And I think that also plays key into this. If you're early game, if you've been only playing for 6 to 9 months, and you've gotten lucky with some of the gear, cool. But everything comes with time.
So I need to make every piece of gear on my account count. And that's why, rather than thinking about the stats on just one champion, I want to think about my gear as providing stats to my account. So what happens?
And that's true, right? There's plenty of time case uses where I roll up a gear and I'm like, I can make a case and argument that this might be good for a Rotos. But the thing is, am I going to rebuild my Rotos? No. So is this piece going to benefit my account in some sort of way? Could I see this piece being used on a different champion? And that's kind of where you decide, do I keep it or sell it?
When you break a set? Well, when you break a set, if that set gives stats, or if that set bonus rather gives stats, that set bonus is not being completed and those stats are lost. Now that doesn't...
Again, if I have, we'll go with the perception set, right? Because he's going to make a case and argument for it in a minute. But if I have a pair of boots, right? Legendary boots, I get 5 rolls on it, or 4 rolls, 5 rolls in total, right? Because you get the base roll and then you get to roll 4. Now, the highest you can roll on a accuracy piece, right, with the base is 60, right? You get 5 rolls of 12. Even if you get just a basic speed roll of 6 or even 5, that one piece of gear is now better than a piece of gear that has no accuracy on it, right? The set bonus between those two is worthless to me. Unless this piece that he's showing off has accuracy, but it doesn't, right? So if this resistance was accuracy, then you can make a case. But when you're going to showcase a piece that has no accuracy, and if this piece had 60, then this piece is automatically better. 100%. Even with a 1 speed roll of a 5, and this got a quad, or, well, not that one, but let's say this piece got a quad because it's a legendary one, that piece is automatically better. And I would break it for the 2-piece set.
Doesn't mean you won't reach the stat threshold that you need on this champion, but that means you've just lost that bonus for your account. So every time...
No. Unless you only have 2 pieces of that particular set. That's the only way. And if you're using it, if you're not using it, if there's no specific niche use for it, then you don't lose anything because you're not using it.
Every time you break a set, you're reducing the value of your artifact collection. Now I'm going to show you an example.
How? How? I don't understand how I'm reducing the fact of my artifact collection. If I'm keeping onto my good pieces of gear with great substats, right, good rolls, I'm only increasing it. But if I'm keeping mediocre pieces just for the set, then I'm decreasing it. So your argument right there is not right.
Of how this plays out in a real game scenario. So one way to think about stats is how many substat rolls would I need in order to get that number of stats? So for instance, if you are trying to get to 300 accuracy, if that's a threshold that you need for a particular fight, or you're trying to get to 50,000 HP, whatever it is, you want to think about how many substat rolls do I need? Because hopefully we've got the main stat pieces that we need, right? We have the HP percentage chest piece, or we have the crit damage gloves, or whatever it happens to be to hit the thresholds that we need. But now all of the other stats that go along with that have to come from substats. Sometimes we need substats, say, for like crit rate, and we're going to get the majority of our crit rate from substats, especially if we're using crit damage gloves. If we're using crit damage gloves, we're getting 100% of our necessary crit rate from substats.
So he's partially right on that, right? The whole getting crit rate from the gear, from the rest of the gear, as opposed to getting it from the gloves. Yes, he's right. Now, you can't really think about it, how many rolls are going to, how many rolls you're going to use, right? Because it's all RNG. Now, let me give you a case use here. A speed set for 2 pieces is going to be 12 speed. I would have to roll 2 speed into a 5-star or 6-star actually piece of gear. High rolls, right? But if I get a legendary piece and an offset, that gives me 4 rolls plus the base roll, right? That's going to be 28 speed, right? Just saying.
In this particular case here, I am running my Skull Crown in a stun set. So I'm using her basically as a crowd control champion. I still want her to hit hard, but I don't have any specific stat requirements here other than the fact that I need to get to 100% crit rate.
Okay. So we're already off to a bad start because we're using Skull Crown in a specific case use, and so we're trying to highlight what we're talking about behind that. If you're using Skull Crown for a specific case use, and she needs the damage in her, she needs to have the 100% crit rate, and she needs to be in a stun set, fine. But that's not a general PvE, PvP use. It's a very specific set that you're using it for Doom Tower, for progression.
As you can see, I have my primary set, which is the stun set, and then I put 2 pieces of another set together to help her in any way I can. But I've still reached the 100% crit rate threshold. You can see my crit damage is pretty good there at 225. And then I also have accuracy at 283. Now,
also, if you don't need the stun, if you can get her to nuke harder and bring a decreased defense in, then what relevance does me having a stun set if I'm nuking the ads and they're not alive? If they're not taking a turn, what does the set provide?
Why do I have accuracy so high? Well, she also debuffs. So in addition to doing damage and using the stun set, she has a weaken on her A2. So I want this to have an opportunity to land. And since
don't build accuracy in your Skull Crown. Her A1 is a god tier nuke. Please, for the love of God, maximize the A1 and then worry about anything else. Do not, please, do not build accuracy on your Skull Crown.
I use her in relatively high levels of Doom Tower, I need relatively high levels of accuracy. Now, this accuracy won't be...
Use a Stagnate, use a Tyrell, and I'm sure this account already has a Lydia, so just use Lydia.
enough all the way at the top of Doom Tower hard. It just won't be. But for a long while, it will be. This is almost 300 accuracy. So this is a champion who's performing multiple roles for me. The accuracy plays, the speed obviously plays.
Multiple specific roles in one area of the game. Right? She's a debuffer. She is a CC. But she is built just for wave control in, I mean, she could probably be used with the same build in Faction Wars, but her case use is more for Doom Tower, from what I understand.
The crit rate plays, the crit damage plays, the attack stat plays, everything plays here. Even her survivability matters because I'm...
Survivability? She's got 35k HP and 1.8k defense. Maybe 1.9 will make that. Yeah.
Going up against the hardest content in the game with this champion. So throwing away any stats here...
Doom Tower is not the hardest content in the game. Maybe early on, okay, but it's not the hardest content in the game.
Here would be foolish. And again, if we go back to that phrase, well, we said stats over sets. So if you just hit the stat threshold, if you hit all these numbers without this particular perception set, which I could do, let's say I had a piece of cruel gear and a piece of speed gear or something like that, I could still hit all of these stats. Yes, but then I would be losing the stats that this perception set gives me, not just for this champion, but for my entire account. And
no, because then you could use this set on a different champion. And again, you don't build Skullcrown with accuracy. You build her to nuke. You build her to not have to worry about putting the weekend up because she's not going to go first. Not at no 220 speed. Not at no 220 speed. You're not going to debuff your enemy and then go into the A1.
Perception gear of all of the gear in the game gives you the most stats. If we think of stats as substats...
He is right on that, right? Perception gear gives you 40 accuracy, and it also gives you 5 speed. So it gives you the baseline speed for whatever, for a 6-star roll, right? Which would be 5. High roll would be 6. And then it gives you basically 3 substat rolls of a medium roll for accuracy. But overall, it is one of the better sets because it provides two stats, right? Keyword stats. You need those 2 stats. You don't need the set.
At rolls. 40 accuracy and 5 speed, roughly 5 speed. That's 9 substat rolls. If a substat roll is 5, then 45 stats is 9 rolls. Now, the maximum number of rolls you can get on a legendary piece is 8. That's 9 substat rolls. If a substat roll is 5, then 45 stats is 9 rolls.
I didn't know you could roll 5 accuracy on a 5 or 6-star piece. It's worst case scenario. It's 5 rolls. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? Not 9. 5. If it was 9 rolls, it would be, I'd say, a mix of 10 speed and 80 accuracy.
Now, the maximum number of rolls you can get on a legendary piece is 8.
Can you guys roll your legendary pieces plus 8? Because I can only do plus 4.
You've got 4 stats, so those are all the 4 base rolls, and then you get 4 additional rolls on top of that.
Okay, so we're talking the 4 rolls that initially come with the piece, and then adding 4 rolls on top of that for whatever you roll. That's 8. Okay.
That's 8 rolls. And this perception set is giving me 9 rolls worth of stats. That's doubling the value of any one piece in terms of...
I'm sorry. None of this makes sense, my man. None of this makes sense. Your 4 pieces of... I'm so frustrated that I can't even talk, guys. Your 4 substat rolls are all going to be different, right? Best case, you roll your 4 rolls, your plus 4 rolls. Then when you bring it to 16, best case scenario is they all land on one set or one speed substat or accuracy substat. It's not. You're making things complicated for absolutely no reason, right? It doesn't. What you're trying to prove right here doesn't make sense at all whatsoever.
Of substats. Now, obviously, this bonus comes from 2 pieces, so I actually get half and half, but that's still more than 50%.
Unless you have a 2-piece set together, you get nothing.
Additional substat value from each piece. And remember, if I break up this set, it might be fine for this champion, but those 9 substat rolls are lost. They just disappear because
Why are they lost? Why would they disappear? If I use that piece of gear that doesn't go on this skull crown and it goes on, I don't know, let's say Michinaki, if he gets another piece of perception gear, it's there.
Because those sets aren't being completed and I'm not getting those set bonuses. Okay, so now we've got two competing ideas. So how do we figure out the solution? How do we balance that out? Well, our new method is going to take a couple of different things into account. The first thing we need to do is we need to look at all of the sets. So in this list right now, I've stopped in the middle of the 4-piece sets that are all the utility sets. So we have Relentless. Now,
4-piece utility sets. So we went from 2 pieces sets, right, to a 4-piece utility set.
Relentless gives you an 18% chance to get an extra turn. If you break this set, you get no percentage of the bonus. Obviously, there's nothing there.
Okay, my counter argument. If I use this set and I don't have enough accuracy, what good is having the extra turn if I can't land a decreased defense or a weaken or a decreased attack? I'm dead.
But not only that, you are taking away a potential piece that could complete a Relentless set for somebody else.
So then don't put it on there. Use a broken set and build that other champion properly with the right stats in the right set.
And since it's a 4-piece set, each piece is actually more important than it would be in a 2-piece set because you have more flexibility in finding 2-piece sets than you do in finding the pieces, the components of a 4.
I'll give him that. It is easier to complete a 2-piece set than it is to complete a 4-piece set, especially for Relentless. He is right on that. I'll give you that one.
Piece set. So I would rather not break a Relentless set if I didn't have to. I don't want to break any sets if I don't have to.
Nobody does. I don't want to break a Relentless set if I don't have to. Why would I do that? If I can meet the stat threshold that I need, and in a Relentless set, my champion just became OP.
But losing the entire value of an extra 18% chance of extra turn is really bad. That's likewise.
Again, if I don't have the stats for it, if I don't have, let's say, accuracy, if I don't have survivability, that Relentless set becomes useless to me.
True for all of the 4-piece sets, especially the utility sets. So we have Savage that ignores defense. We have Destroy that obviously destroys max HP. The Stun applies stuns. Toxic applies poisons. All of these sets are only valuable in groups of 4.
Correct. And all of these sets are special niche case use sets. If I'm building my clan boss team, I don't care about sets unless the specific comp tells me so. If I build my, I don't know, Michinaki will go again with enough crit damage and crit rate and accuracy to nuke the clan boss, I don't care if it is in Relentless. If he can get more defense and crit damage and crit rate, he's going to hit the boss harder, and it's not really going to help if I have mediocre stats in a Relentless set or a Destroy set. And Savage is basically used in Arena for your nukers and a lot of end game builds. So unless we're talking brand new accounts, level 40, 50, yeah, you can't sell me on this.
So any piece that breaks that set is actually ruining the value of 3 other pieces.
No. Because those pieces don't need to be on that champion. Those pieces don't need to be on that champion unless those are the best pieces for the build you are trying to complete or the stats needed for the content.
Or at least it's reducing the value of those 3 other pieces. And flexibility matters.
Reducing, I can see, right? We can make a slight argument right there. It's reducing the value because to gain the best value is to have the stats and the proper sets.
Because you never know what the exact stats are going to be on any given piece and what the exact stats you're going to need for any given champion. So
what the stats are going to be on any given piece, yes, unless you fully roll it up, you're not going to know. What the stats are going to be on a given champion, if you're building a champion, my man, you're going to know what your stats you want to hit are. I know, depending on the content, how much accuracy, how much speed, how much resistance, how much HP and defense I need.
So when you're collecting Relentless gear, you want to collect as many pieces as possible. Keep anything that is even marginally good. So
okay. You want to keep as many pieces as possible. He is correct on that. pieces that are marginally good. That's a loose term, right? If you're early game, I agree. As you start moving into the mid game, late game, and into the end game, you have to be a little more pickier with your gear. If a piece of Relentless gear rolled you two speed roll substats that are low, and then same piece, same stats, rolled too high, but everything else is the same, obviously I'm going to keep the two high pieces, not the two roll pieces, right? So you need to make sure you're keeping what is going to be better for your account. When you start keeping too many mediocre pieces, you end up like him having 1,300 pieces in your inventory. He's never going to build that many champions.
So that you can always complete that set. Putting a fantastic Relentless piece as a broken set piece on another champion is a drastic move that really hampers your ability to make a complete Relentless set that's really effective.
But if the complete Relentless set that your quote unquote is effective doesn't have the right champion build, it's not going to do anything.
So I don't want to break Relentless pieces. Now I will if I absolutely...
No one wants to. No one wants to.
Have to. But at the first opportunity, I want to replace that broken Relentless piece, put it back into my storage here, so I can then utilize that to create...
Why are you going to take a Relentless piece and put it back in your storage?
Create a full-powered Relentless set for another champion. So what kind of sets is it good to break? Is it okay to break? And really, we don't want any broken sets, but we will start collecting pieces in specific sets that don't necessarily make sense for the primary usage of that set. And they are all 2-set pieces with 2 exceptions. Okay, so I'm going to leave speed sets, divine speed sets, and perception sets off the list because you should be collecting as many of those pieces as possible because they're usable pretty much everywhere.
Okay, so he's going to go down here and he's going to talk about every piece of set and which pieces you should and shouldn't break and collect. I'll leave the video in the description below if you guys want to go watch the full thing. But here's the thing, guys, because we will be here for an hour trying to talk about his video, right? When looking at a particular piece of gear, you need to decide what is best for your account. Is this piece going to be used, right? If it's going to be used sometime within the near future, and when I mean near future, I mean next 30 days to 90 days, right? Because if you're farming, even if you're free to play, you will eventually get more upgrades the longer you're playing. So if it is going to be something of that vicinity, then you keep it, you roll it, and you see what the rolls give you. Now, let me show you guys a quick thing here, right? I have a pretty, we'll say stacked account, right? Not the best one, but I have a pretty good one. Now, my arena nukers are built for specific case uses, right? So they are built with what's going to cause the most damage, which means they need savage and cruel. So cool. Specific case use, I'm using them for that. All right, UDK, same thing. Specific case use, this is what he needs. So I'm going to build him with that, with the best stats possible. But let's go into my cardio. I don't have any set bonuses. He is in a build for hard mode Fire Knight. Has absolutely nothing. You know what he does have? He has the proper stats that are needed for my Fire Knight team. He has the proper speed. He has the amount of damage that I need, which, hey, I could do more damage. What good is this cardio going to do to me if I put him in savage or lethal if my damage is halved? The bonus that set is going to give me is not going to be as good, right? Let's talk about my Snitchrak. My Snitchrak's built in a bolster set and speed set because he needs the bolster set. He doesn't need the speed set. The speed set was needed to fit a particular speed. If this was any other 2 pieces, I would have equipped it. Not even hesitated. Here's another one. Taras. This Taras places anywhere from top 50 to top 100. He is wearing a 4-piece savage and a 2-piece broken. Why is he wearing those? Well, we have crit damage with ridiculous crit rate, proper ascension. Now, according to him, this would be bad. I would want to put another piece on there. But this is the best piece for this build. Let's talk about my chest. Triple crit damage, HP percentage, survivability, and HP percentage for ascension. Again, best stats for the build. It's not going to help with anything else. According to him, I should be looking to put another piece here, another 2 pieces here that are going to be, best case. But the thing is, Cruel isn't going to make a difference. If I put a life set, I'm going to get 15% HP, but what am I going to lose for it, right? Am I going to lose 15 crit damage? Am I going to lose 10 crit rate? Which then means I need to break something else up here to figure out where I'm going to gain those stats. Now, some of you guys are going to say, look at you. You're talking about him having too much gear. So do you. Yeah, I do. And I'm going through trying to re-gear every one of my champions currently. And I can tell you, I'm having a hard enough time trying to figure out builds for all these guys, right? It's not easy whatsoever. So, case in point, stats over sets is still it. Again, guys, 50 are telling you stats over sets. 1 is telling you sets over stats. I'll let you be the judge. As always, guys, much love, much appreciation. Be safe, be well, be good to each other. I'll catch you guys on the next one.